Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for the intersection Transportation Choices in Livable Communities. My name is Anne-Marie Flannery, and I am with AARP Florida. And we are really grateful to have 3 additional speakers with us today. We have Kim Johnson, who's with the Florida Department of Elder Affairs, and she's a planning specialist. We have Gail Holly, who's with the Safe Mobility for Life program, and she's a research manager. And we also have Becky Marcy from Florida Department of Transportation, and she is a statewide planning coordinator. Thank you all for joining us today for this important discussion. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. Can you see the slides on the screen? Yes, no. Make sure that they're showing. Are they showing? Okay, there we go. All right, you should see them now. Thank you. Sorry about the little technical difficulties. This is what we're going to talk about today. We are going to give an overview of the 8 domains of livable communities, and then we're going to hear about the different statewide plans that are part of the different organizations that we feel have some links to livable communities. We're going to hear about the State Plan on Aging, the Florida Transportation Plan, and the Safe Mobility for Life Strategic Plan. From these icons, I just want to talk a little briefly about each of the plans to give you a little bit of background. Starting with the Florida State Plan on Aging, the Department of Elder Affairs prepares a state plan on aging every 4 years as required by the Federal Older Americans Act. It's submitted to the Administration for Community Living for review. The plan provides strategic direction for Florida's aging network. It includes data, research, and identifies priorities, needs, and best practices. The next plan we're going to talk about is the Florida Transportation Plan. This plan is a single, overarching, statewide plan that guides Florida's transportation future. It is a plan for all of Florida, created by and providing direction to the Florida Department of Transportation and all organizations that are involved in planning and managing Florida's transportation system, including statewide, regional, and local partners. And then the last plan that we're going to talk about is the Aging Road User Strategic Safety Plan. Now, this is a collaborative and strategic approach where it's a statewide coalition that consists of 29 member organizations, and they all focus on aging and have representatives from both area agencies on aging and the Association of Senior Centers. This plan is data-driven with 6 focus areas, which we'll go into detail later in the discussion. And each resource we develop has an evaluation plan to help reach our goals. So we'll be talking about how these 3 plans can fit together and affect livable communities. I mentioned there's 8 domains of livability. And on this slide, you can see the 8 domains of livability. This is a framework that's used to organize and prioritize the work of age-friendly communities to become more livable for people of all ages. And you'll see that transportation, the orange circle, is part of this, which is why we wanted to bring together these 3 organizations and their plans to talk about how transportation can impact livable communities. And I'm going to pass it on to Kim Johnson with the Department of Elder Affairs.
Thank you for that introduction. I'm happy to be here. Our first slide shows us the Florida Department of Elder Affairs is the designated state unit on aging in accordance with the Older Americans Act and Chapter 340 of the Florida statutes. The department works in concert with federal, state, local, and community-based public and private agencies and organizations to represent the interests of older Floridians and their caregivers, as well as their families. These organizations and providers make up Florida's aging network as represented on this slide. The next slide, please. As reported earlier, the department prepares the state plan on aging. The plan provides strategic direction to Florida's aging network. It includes data and research and identifies priorities, needs, and best practices. Next. The State Advisory Group was created in 2016 to work with DOEA to develop recommendations for the State Plan on Aging. In 2016, this group comprised 19 members of organizations and associations in Florida's aging network. By 2019, the group was expanded to include 40 member organizations and increased representation from other associations, state agencies, and nonprofit partners. Using AARP's domains of livability as a basis, and considering the information gathered during our environmental scan, the department developed 7 areas of focus, as seen here, on which to concentrate for the state plan on aging. These areas of focus are inclusive of national priorities and requirements, yet are Florida specific. In addition, the areas of focus are able to integrate well with other strategic plans in Florida as well as nationally. Next slide. Within our area of focus, which is called Build Quality Places, we have dedicated a specific goal focused on transportation to support the expansion of safe, reliable, and accessible transportation options that increase mobility. The goal has 3 concrete objectives. Next. The first objective is to promote training on the safe use of transportation options, increase transit access by supporting the Florida Department of Transportation's Aging Road User Strategic Plan, compile a list of accessible transportation resources, including those related to modification and resale that are currently available. Next slide, please. With objective 2, we are supporting the development of alternative options and support pilot projects. Developing training for car dealerships that inform consumers of age-friendly vehicles is one example of vehicle training options. Another thing is to promote the finding of studies on autonomous vehicles and share the results of those studies. Next slide, please. And finally, the third objective is to increase access to inter-county transportation services by collaborating with innovative and established partners in rural areas, including outreach to the private sector, including Uber, Lyft, and other businesses. Next slide, please. Transportation is an important component of the plan and is addressed in various places throughout the State Plan on Aging. The AARP Walkabout Audit Toolkit is designed to help individuals, groups, and leaders assess the walkability of sidewalks and streets in their communities. The toolkit provides step-by-step instructions and checklists for examining intersections, sidewalks, driver behavior, and public safety. Florida's Guide to Safe Mobility for Life includes information on understanding the impact driving has on aging, being proactive as a driver, pedestrian, bicyclist, transit rider, motorcyclist, golf cart driver, and planning for life behind the driver's seat. Next, please. Connecting communities throughout the plan is all about social engagement. Finding alternative age-friendly transportation options and programs which promote affordable door-to-door transportation services. Connecting individuals, groups, and communities to services and community activities help ward off social isolation, which can pose serious health risks. Next. And now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Becky Marcy, with the Department of Transportation.
Thanks, Kim. And thank you all for having us here today. We appreciate being part of this conversation. As Anne Marie said earlier, the Florida Transportation Plan is really a plan for all of Florida. It is not an FDOT-centric plan, but it is one that shapes the transportation future for all of Florida. So it's a guiding, it sets a guiding policy for our local transportation planners, our regional plans, and it sets that policy guidance for how we're going to expend our state funds as well as our federal funds on our transportation system. I think it's important to understand that our Florida Transportation Plan is just not one document. It's actually comprised of 4 different elements. So the first element, which we actually completed in May of this year, and it is available online for those of you who are interested in reading it, is our vision element. So this defines that long-term vision that we have for our transportation in Florida, and it sets our goals that we have for the next 25 years. The element that we're working on right now is the policy element, and this is scheduled to be published at the end of the year and describes how we're going to accomplish that vision and those goals. So it looks at the objectives and those strategies that are really going to guide our transportation partners at our local and regional levels and the state level for the next 25 years. The implementation element, which we will move into next year, looks at the more short-term actions, those specific strategies that will can be implemented within 5 years, and that will help get us towards our vision. And then the policy element reports on how we're performing on key measures such as safety, asset condition, mobility. And it also, again, will let us know how we're moving forward towards the goals. So as you can see, it's a series of elements that make up the Florida Transportation Plan, and it's an encompassing process. And so we set our goals, and then we look back and are we making progress towards our goals? And that's the cycle for the Florida Transportation Plan. On the next slide, you'll see we have how we do the development process. We do have a steering committee, which is made up of a diverse group of organizations, agencies throughout Florida. And the steering committee provides guidance and recommendations to FDOT on objectives and strategies that will get us there. And again, this is not an FDOT centric plan. And so that is why we really do have a diverse representation on the steering committee. In fact, AARP has representation on the committee. You know, your traditional transportation partners like highway safety and motor vehicles, you know, some of our local transportation planning organizations, but we also have organizations that you may not think of, such as the Florida Department of Health, Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Economic Opportunity. So all of these diverse organizations provide their expertise in their areas as it relates to transportation, and really helps us to make sure that we are looking at objectives and strategies that encompass all aspects of transportation. So it is truly a plan for all of Florida. We also have several subcommittees that we use and report on policy level strategies up to our steering committee. The ACES subcommittee, which stands for Automated, Connected, Electric, and Shared Vehicles, reports on the technologies, these emerging technologies, and the implications, to our transportation system in Florida. So making sure that we're staying ahead of that technology curve and we're planning in advance for the technologies that will impact our system. Resilience, looking at how we can make our transportation system more resilient to things like natural hazards, cyber attacks, sea level rise, even economic shifts. All of those impact our transportation system. And so collectively, we want to look at strategies to make our transportation system more resilient. Safety really is the number one goal. We have a vision of zero fatalities on our transportation system. And so this subcommittee really looked at the strategies that would help us make the greatest gains toward improving safety across all modes. And of course, we look to our partners, our typical transportation partners, our non-traditional partners, the public. Everyone can help to provide input on the objectives, the strategies, and the goals for our transportation future. So it is, like I said, it's a process, and we like to engage as many people as we can. On the next slide, you'll see that we have our circular goals. So we have 7 goals, but they are in a circle for a reason. What we found is that a lot of our goals have objectives and strategies that overlap goal areas. So really, it's not 7 independent goals, but we're looking at how these goals together shape our vision for Florida's transportation future. So on the next slide, we'll focus on our safety goal, which again, safety is, one of our top priorities. And our goal is safety and security for residents, visitors, and businesses. And really the strategy is commit to Vision Zero as our top priority. So how can we, improve and eliminate transportation related fatalities and serious injuries across all modes, including walking, biking, rail, transit, micromobility. All of it's important, and we want to make sure that we are taking strides to reduce, again, fatalities and serious injuries. And then how can we create safer communities through more integrated land use, design, traffic operations, and how can we use data to make and support those decisions? And I think one of the most important things is we're looking at how can we engage a broader range of partners, including, vehicle manufacturers, technology providers, insurance companies, healthcare institutions. All of these organizations, while they may not be traditional transportation partners, all play an important part in helping to create a safe transportation system. And so that is obviously, our top goal there on the circle is safety. On the next slide, we go into infrastructure. So, again, creating an agile, resilient, and quality transportation infrastructure. So, we want to look at how we can, obviously improve our resilience when we have such things as natural disasters, but also how can we improve transportation system connectivity, meaning we want to make sure that we're connecting, our local streets, our sidewalks, our bicycle and trail networks. So there's more options for local, regional, and state travel. Looking at our shared use, our non-motorized Sun Trail, and linking the system to regional trail networks to provide more of a statewide system of trail corridors. And then one of the other things is that we want to make sure that we're also encompassing a broader definition of infrastructure. So our goal goes beyond just the concrete and the steel that make up our roads and our bridges, but it also encompasses the communications and the technologies that enable this system to function. So, how are we making sure that we're preparing our transportation system for deployment of things like automated, connected, electric, and shared vehicles? Are we making sure that we have plans in place for electrical vehicle charging stations, electronic pavements? And then, of course, with that comes the responsibility for making sure that we're mitigating cybersecurity and data security risks. So, all of that plays into our infrastructure goal. On our next slide, we talk about our mobility goal, which is connected, efficient, and reliable mobility for people and freight. So, mobility is more than just efficiency, it's about access. So, Florida residents, they need access to jobs, education, healthcare, and how can we prioritize mobility for folks as well as freight? It's not just enough to move cars on the road, but we want to find ways that have multimodal options to support that efficient and reliable end-to-end mobility for people as well as freight throughout our state. On the next slide, we have our transportation choices. So transportation choices that improve accessibility and equity. And what we've heard, through our conversations is it's not enough to simply provide more choices, but we need to make sure there's universal accessibility for all Floridians. So looking at how we can improve opportunity for those folks who need it the most. So looking at improving affordability of transportation, coordinating our transportation and housing decisions to provide more attainable options for our lower income residents. Enhancing transportation services to the traditionally underserved communities and socioeconomic groups, focusing on, rural areas and those urban core areas and other neighborhoods who may have, current accessibility gaps. So that is what we mean by making sure that we have choices, that the choices are there and they're accessible to all Floridians. On our next slide is the economy. So transportation solutions that strengthen Florida's economy. Obviously, we want Floridians to have access to jobs, to education, to healthcare, and other services. We're increasing the reliability and efficiency for people as well as those freight trips. And so many of the same strategies that we talked about through those other goals, such as, expanding our infrastructure, our technology, access to opportunities, transforming Florida's transportation hubs and corridors and making sure they're connected, all of those are going to help us strengthen our economy as we move forward. Our next slide focuses on the goal of community. So ensuring transportation systems enhance Florida's community. So we want a transportation system that strengthens diverse communities across the state, everything from large cities to small towns and rural areas. So looking at how can we integrate land use and transportation decisions, integrating community development and multimodal transportation decisions to prepare for development, as well as travel to existing areas. And all of that supports, connecting transportation networks that support our aging in place and our livable communities that we're talking about today. And our last goal on this next slide is transportation solutions that enhance Florida's environment. So what can we be doing with decisions to make sure that we're reducing transportation's impact on our water, our critical lands, and our habitats? Finding ways that we can reduce Florida's transportation footprint, maybe optimizing the use of our existing infrastructure, looking at combining multiple modes and multiple forms of infrastructure into certain right-of-ways. And again, making sure that it's not just about our transportation, but looking at how we're impacting our environment as we make these decisions. Looking for clean energy alternatives that reduce our net energy consumption, making sure that we're reducing emissions as we move forward. So collectively, all of these goals really help to define the vision for Florida's transportation future. And this is laid out in that vision element, which I talked about earlier. And we will provide a link to that, and we hope that you will have an opportunity to take a look at it and provide your input as we move forward. So I want to thank you, and we'll move on to Gail Hawley with Safe Mobility for Life.
Good afternoon. I'm going to share with you a little bit more about the Florida Department of Transportation's Aging Road User Program, Safe Mobility for Life, and some specific resources that actually will support a lot of the goals and objectives that you just heard from both the FTP and the State Plan on Aging. Next slide. Okay, before we get started, it's really important to really define who our audience is, who we say is an aging road user as we move forward. I know it was, given out a little bit earlier, but it's worth repeating. So it's not just a driver, but it's also passengers, pedestrians, bicyclists, transit riders, motorcyclists, and operators of non-motorized vehicles such as golf carts. And we actually focus on 50 years of age or older is in the definition, but we do put a special emphasis on 65 years and older because that's where the data is. That's where at the federal and the state level, it is defined in our crash, serious injury, and fatality rates. So that's very important. Next slide, please. Okay, so over 10 years ago, DOT actually partnered with the Pepper Institute on Aging and Public Policy at Florida State University to form a statewide coalition. And as Anne-Marie mentioned, today we have 29 member organizations, including AARP Florida, and they are represented from all areas of the state, including our rural, urban, and suburban areas. And working together, we are implementing Florida's Aging Road User Strategic Safety Plan that does have 6 focus areas. And each of those areas are aging in place, prevention and assessment, licensing and enforcement, transitioning from driving, outreach and education, and program management, data, and evaluation. So each of those focus areas have their own specific goals, but we are all trying to work towards one goal, is that we want to improve aging road user safety and mobility by reducing their fatalities, serious injuries, and crash rates, but while also maintaining safe mobility and connection to the community. Next slide. So we have some challenges. The biggest challenge is, of course, our aging population, the growth. We are currently at 20% of our population is over the age of 65, and that is only going to continue to increase. It's projected that 1 in 4 drivers is going to be over the age of 65 by the year 2045. So again, it's really important that whatever we do, we could just continue to work on it now. And FDOT is committed to Vision Zero, as Becky mentioned earlier, which is really want to achieve 0 fatalities on our transportation system. So that is something that we're working towards, which can be a challenge with the increases to the population. And also it's important that we have more mobility choices for older adults and communities so that we just don't rely on the sole use of our personal vehicles to continue to get around. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the approach we're taking to address these challenges. Next slide. So we actually did craft, while we do have a strategic plan, and that is so important when you have a large group of people working together, so that way we make sure we have a coordinated effort. It was also important that we created a targeted message to instantly let our audience know that we offered a very layered approach to achieving safe mobility for life. So again, the keys are to understand the impact that aging has on driving, be proactive about your safe driving skills, and plan for a safe transition from driving. This message is really important for us, especially in reaching 50 to 64-year-olds, to help everyone be prepared. It is important to remember that natural age-related changes can happen to all of us at any time, but there is no specific age when those changes can occur. So it is always important that we're prepared and ready. Next slide, please. Okay, our outreach and education efforts is really based on positive messaging to help promote our motivation and memory of the programs and the informations received. We embrace these 4 techniques in all of our outreach and education. We show compassion. We really want to be authentic. It is not just, we're all in this together. We want to empower people, point out the benefits, and really highlight what is in your control. And encourage, focus on successes and making progress. And then also making it personal, be relatable. We often tell and share stories, testimonies from others, whether it's with driving, tips on doing it, or whether it's just how transitioning or using other modes. It's really important that we kind of make it personal, again, because we're all in this together. Next slide, please. So many people feel like they will be stuck at home if they do not drive a personal vehicle. And we are really trying to break the misconception that driving alone means mobility independence. And we realize that does take work. That's part of our challenge that I mentioned earlier, because we need to have community and mobility options available in order for people to get about their communities without driving. But we also believe that planning and having a lot of options is really the key to true mobility independence. Next slide. Okay, so now I'm really going to get into some specific resources and materials that are actually available to you right now. Next slide. Okay, the first one is Florida's Guide to Safe Mobility for Life. And this is really a one-stop booklet and guide to just contain everything you need to know to develop your own personalized transportation plan, to learn more about the keys to achieve safe mobility for life. We have individual chapters that go into more detail about how to understand the impact of aging, all the changes that can occur, how to be prepared. Also, be proactive, tips and information there. But again, not just tips and information for being proactive as a driver, but we also have a lot of information for if you're walking as a transportation mode or biking. We have ride sourcing, which is like using Uber or Lyft, sharing a ride, and even some community-specific features such as golf carts and, in some areas, connected vehicles and shuttles that are currently available. So we do have this available in English and Spanish, and it's really important that we've developed multiple versions. We have printed copies. You can actually order it and get it delivered to you, and that we have it available in ebook and in the library. We just really want to make sure we have available every way for people to how they learn. We want to reach them how they learn. And the booklet actually does contain a lot of guides and worksheets. It has information that you can actually go step by step and to give you specific direction in building your transportation plan. It provides statewide and county resources, so you can go in there to get the contact information, phone numbers, website info for specific resources at both the state and county level. Next slide, please. All right, so in addition, as I said, the our guide actually does contain tips on being proactive in using other modes, but we really also developed some specific resources to address each of those modes. So this actually, gives you really good tips and information, answers a lot of questions you might have in relation to riding transit, bicycling, even using a golf cart, and also transportation network companies such as Uber and Lyft. And this is really the one that we're actually getting ready. We just finished, it's in final review right now, is when I'm walking. So we're really excited that could be the end to our series. So that should be available soon. Next slide. All right, so while print materials is great, we really want to make sure that we are doing hands-on teaching of different modes. So we have a few workshops that we have in place, and a lot of these, of course, were pre-COVID, but I'll also share what we're doing now in midst of COVID. So the first is our Keys to Achieve Safe Mobility for Life workshop. This has been really well received, has taken place across the state, and it actually goes into a lot more detail on all the keys. So it will give you specific resources. It's very interactive. We ask people questions, and we really answer questions too, to really so everybody kind of gets an idea of how they can be safe and what resources are available to them. We also developed a Safe Walking for Life workshop where you actually have in-classroom training on how to stay safe while you're walking, and then they actually go out on a walking tour to just learn more in the field about safe walking tips. And then we've done Safe Transit for Life in partnership with the Florida Public Transportation Association. And this one we actually did right before COVID hit. We did one where we partnered with Lynx and Sunrail and took a group of older adults on actually rode the systems with them. And this was great because a lot of times you don't know how to use the systems and need that hands-on learning. And the last one, the Safe Walking for Life, is actually a workshop that's sponsored by the University of Florida. We provide assistance with the booklet that I mentioned earlier. And this is really another great opportunity to learn some safety tips on how you could use biking as a transportation option. Next slide. All right, this resource here is findarideflorida.org, and we've developed this in partnership with the University of Florida. And it is actually a website where you can type in where you live and where you're going, and you can get a listing of all the in alphabetical order, a listing of all the resources that are available to you. We're constantly adding more providers to the site, and it's really just a way to really give you a better understanding. Sometimes people don't really know what their options are, and it's just a way to recognize that so you can use it in your transportation planning. Next slide, please. Okay, this is one of my favorite resources. One, because it does deal with design features and lifelong communities, but really the main reason is the story behind it, because I actually did a presentation and there was a gentleman in the audience. I was presenting on different design features, countermeasures in the field, and how to prepare for a lifelong community. And he came up and asked afterwards, is like, how do I know what to look for what do I need to look for in my community to make sure that it can meet my transportation needs in the future? So it was a light bulb moment, and we actually created this checklist. So this checklist really goes through and asks you questions, what you can, it covers 4 areas: community design, street safety and security, getting around, and neighborhood support services. And it's a great resource for you to check out, but it's also really good for city engineers, planners, developers, so that everybody can kind of know what to look for to make sure that we have created streets and communities that meet the safe mobility needs of all road users. Next slide. All right, so there's a lot of resources. I'm just touching on a few in the time we have available. So I would like to direct you to our website, safemobilityfl.com. And from there, you can actually easily access, click on the button. You can go straight to the guide. Also, the button in the middle talks about, will actually take you to where you can actually download and order materials that are available right now. And then also the Find a Ride. It's just a quick and easy way to go directly to that site. I also would encourage you to sign up for our e-newsletter. It's a quarterly newsletter that goes out, and it really does give you a lot more information and that is available to you. So it's a great resource for you. Next slide. Okay, so I want to leave you with this because this is really important. With every presentation, we really feel like there is a call to action for everybody. As we've mentioned before, we're committed to Vision Zero. And there's a lot of things that we all can do right now. So these are some things that you can actually do starting right now. So the first is to really read Florida's Guide to Safe Mobility for Life. Like I said, it has a lot of great information, things you might not even be aware to help keep you safe and mobile in your own communities. The second is to complete the checklist because it might be eye-opening for you for the current community you live in now, or use it as an assessment tool for some place that you might be thinking about moving to. And then visit Find a Ride Florida and actually use it, check it out to see what available resources that you have there. Because again, you might not be aware of one, and if you know about it in advance, then you're already ready to use it when it's available. And then this was really important, is to develop your own plan, to start small, just start thinking about where you need to go and want to go. Again, the guide can walk you straight through that. 3 easy worksheets to just, help you think about and just to pull this plan together that's unique to you, because we all have different places that we need and want to go. And then this one we actually put in every presentation, really start to get people to challenge yourself to just start doing one errand without using your car. It could be something that you might not even think that you can use another mode to, but I think we all just quickly jump in our cars sometimes before when we need to get someplace, but just to kind of really think about what you can do. My personal one is I make a commitment to walk, this is of course pre-COVID, to Publix just up the road, just at least, a couple times a week. So that was mine. And then the last one here is really that we just ask that you, really just engage with us on social media. We're on all platforms. We really have very active campaigns every month. You'll just learn a lot of different things about all the areas, even the ones I couldn't touch on today. And then we do have something I wanted to let you know about in December. From December 7th through 11th is Older Driver Safety Awareness Week, and we are including a big campaign. We're going to be doing a lot more of looking at ways to make some of our workshops, including the keys to safe mobility for life, as a virtual one. So this is just a way to kind of stay connected and engaged and really know what's out there and going on. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anne-Marie.
Hi, this is Kim Johnson again with the Department of Elder Affairs. If you could advance the slide, please. So we're looking at the future. Where do we go from here? I think we're all bringing a call to action. Think of things you can do in your neighborhood to support the state plan. What can you do in your own communities to support the state plan? One example might be writing to city or county councils or commissions and bringing to their attention that a bus stop is in need of lighting to be a safer transportation option for people. Give some thought when you go back to your communities after spending time with this event and with the different agencies, discussing our plans, our future, our hopes. What can you do to help us get to where we want to be? And I'll be handing this over to Becky Marcy.
Hi, thanks again. So our call to action, I shared with you all of our goals, our vision for Florida's transportation future, and I just touched on a few things, a few strategies, a few ideas as it relates to each goal. So what we would really like from you all is to get your input. We have what we call our FTP virtual room. Because of the current situation, obviously in-person workshops are not available. So we wanted to find a way that we can connect with the public and really continue to get that feedback and the information from you all. So if you visit our FTP virtual room at floridatransportationplan.com, what you can do is you'll virtually walk through a series of goal stations, and it'll talk to you about the goal. It'll share with you some of our strategies, objectives, and you'll have an opportunity to leave your comments, provide your input. What can we be doing better? What have we missed? And again, this is how we make this a plan for all of Florida. We need to hear from you. We need to hear from the public, from our partners. Share this with your friends, with your family. But this virtual room is our opportunity to get your feedback. And again, we invite you to go visit floridatransportationplan.com. And I'd just like to thank AARP for having this webinar today and inviting us to be on and participate in this important discussion.
Yes, thank you. We're happy to be here too.
Anne Marie, I think you might be muted.
Well, thank you for being here today. It was a pleasure. It looks like we're running into some technical difficulties with Anne Marie. We apologize about that. We're all doing the best we can in the times we're in. But we brought a wealth of information, and if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. We have enjoyed working together on this presentation, and all of our agencies are working together to bring the best to Florida.
Thank you.